Welcome to Wannabe Clutter Free, formerly Wannabe Minimalist, the podcast for busy families who are tired of the chaos, fed up with being overwhelmed, and ready to enjoy life again. Each week, we talk about how to let go of the clutter so that you can focus on the things that actually matter. And it's not just physical clutter, we talk about the mental and emotional stuff too, because if it's holding you back, it's time to ditch it. I share what I've done in my own life to declutter, organize, and calm the chaos, but you won't just hear it from me. There are amazing guests too. It's practical, doable, and simple for those of us that want to be clutter-free. Well, hey there, my friend. Welcome back to the show. I'm Deanna Yates, and you are listening to episode 207 of the Wannabe Clutter Free podcast. On today's episode, I am chatting with Grace Rehman about how to declutter when we get to be a little bit older. Or how can we help our loved ones when they get to be a little bit older declutter their stuff? We're going to talk about her story and we're going to talk about why she is drawn to helping people declutter in midlife and beyond. So it's a really interesting conversation and she's got some really great insights. But before we get there, I want to just take a second to say thank you for joining me today. I know you have a choice of lots of podcasts and there are so many things calling your attention right now. So thank you for joining me today. I don't take that lightly, and I will do my best to bring you information that is helpful and inspiring. And if you like what you hear, can you do me a favor and share the show with a friend or leave a rating or a review? You can do that wherever you're listening to this podcast. I really appreciate it. And then also reach out to me and let me know what else you want to hear about. I would love to bring you guests you want to hear from or topics that'll help you declutter and organize in your home. So let me know. You can reach out to me on Instagram. I am at Wannabe Clutter Free on all the social channels. And now let's hear about our amazing guest this week. Grace Rehman is a professional declutterer and organizer based in Stockton, California. She specializes in helping people clear away decades of accumulation so that they can have a more simplified and peaceful home environment. She believes that letting go of things you no longer need, use, or love makes room for more possibilities. When she's not helping clients, she's hanging out with her husband and almost 6-year-old son, Zane. And now let's get to our conversation. Well, hi, Grace. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to Wanna Be Clutter Free. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. And Deanna, I feel like I already know you because I just listened to your episode encapsulating your experience for the past 10 years. So, yeah, this is like so cool. So, I'm doing great and I'm so happy to be on your podcast.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to have you. And I am excited to get to do the other side of that where we all get to know you more today. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Let's dive in right there. Tell us about Grace and what you do.
For sure. First of all, if there is one word I would use today to describe myself, it'd be like multi passionate. I try to be into too many things. I mean, music, singing, writing, a lot of all of those things. But currently, I live in Stockton, California with my husband, which is Stockton is 45 minutes south about of Sacramento. And I live with my husband and my soon to be 6-year-old son. And so yes, I currently have a home organizing business called Organize with Grace.
Okay, first off, I love the age. I love when they're that age and they're like, no, but I'm almost 6. I'm 5 3/4. And it is so important. So I love that you pointed that out. It's so cute. And then as we get older, we're like, I just under my mid 40s. No, it's fine. I tell everybody on the podcast, I think aging is wonderful. So I am all on board. Let's just age gracefully. Let's enjoy the moment and the season we're in. So I want to jump right in. You specialize in decluttering and downsizing, basically for those that are at midlife and beyond. So, what drew you to that focus and how does it differ?
Well, I feel like it has chosen me looking back on my life. So, what that means is, in my culture, caring for the elderly is a norm. So, it's normal to have your grandma or your grandpa living with you, with your immediate family. And eventually, the expectation is you care for your elderly. And then on the other hand, my husband, who is Pakistani, and his culture is similar regarding caring for the elderly when we got married. His commitment to taking care of his dad, who had medical issues, was like, hey, we're getting married. We could be on our own, but I would love it if we can be with my dad who needs that care and attention. And so we made a decision to be with him. And he passed away, in 2016. So they're home. He left us with their home, who they've lived in for the past 4 decades. So you can imagine what type of process we had to go through with cluttering and removing the things, all of the things. And at first, we were gonna stay there. We thought, "Oh, okay, we can renovate it and all those things." And then we got pregnant in 2017, and that changed the game for us. And so it was a game changer specifically for my husband. So again, the process. And now I say that this specialization chose me is an understatement because looking back, completing that monstrous move was like I my heart was really my heart was already towards those of us who are aging. I mean, we're all aging. That's the truth, right? Day by day. Last time I checked, I got older, a day older. But with that process, we had to move from a 5-bedroom home into a 860 square foot 2-bedroom apartment.
That's a big change.
Yes, with a newborn baby. So you could imagine it took a lot of planning and organizing to do that. So now fast forward, I feel like my desire to have an organizing business, it kind of just the puzzles just fit for me. And so as I was exploring the different specializations that you can have as a home organizers, I'm like, this fits. This is it. So that is my long answer to that question.
Yeah, no. No, well, I'm sorry for your loss. My father-in-law passed away in 2011, and thankfully, my mother-in-law is still here. So she was having to then sort through all the things and declutter and moved homes, went from a 4-bedroom, very large home with a full basement in the Midwest to a 3-bedroom, single level, little smaller space, just to help her as she continues to age and have a place where she could live long term. And yeah, that process of all the things, an entire life of stuff. And especially, I do feel like the older generation collected a lot because their parents went through, especially here in the US, went through the depression. And so I feel like there was always this big push to save everything. You might need it just in case, because that was the mentality they were raised with when they were children, even though now that they're older, it's so much easier to get anything we need at any time. And so I think our generation is going to have the problem of we just bought it because we could, maybe not because we needed it. And so figuring out that. But yeah, I don't know exactly what you went through because, again, we did not have to declutter the house, but we were also pregnant when she moved from about a year after he passed away. So very similar kind of timeline there, interestingly enough. But I remember helping her move houses and I was pregnant. So yeah, going through all of that stuff is hard. So you went from you were living with him then, is that was the 5-bedroom scenario, and then you ended up selling that home and you moved to a 2-bedroom apartment to start your family. Okay. So yeah, walk us through that. Like, I mean, clearly there's a ton of emotions that come along with decluttering all that stuff. How did you make some of those decisions? I know that was then because it was your husband's father, right? That's a different level of emotional attachment and connection with the things. So how did you start to work through some of that?
Well, at first, we decided, of course, we cannot fit all of those things into that apartment. So we did. We did have to rent a storage, but we decided, you know what? We got to do what we got to do with the things in this storage. And we've decided out front that we are not going to keep this storage for much longer than 6 months. So our apartment had a washer and dryer. We had a washer and dryer that was in storage. We didn't need it anymore. I mean, as much as we paid for that washer and dryer, we're not going to use it, and we are not going to store it and pay for it to sit there. So we started to sell things that we could. Of course, my father-in-law's things, my husband had a hard time letting go of at first, but through time, he made those decisions. And we're going to get into that about tips on how to help a family member do that. And so it was time and it was a lot of decision making. about the things because the clients that I have right now, and you mentioned people that have grown up or whose parents have grown up in the depression era. In fact, I do have a client who she's like, Grace, nobody ever taught me to throw anything away. And that was such a true statement in her life. You're the first one that told me that it's okay to throw away even a piece of newspaper that I just read. And she's working through that right now, but it's a really tough process to go through. And for her, she sorry to go into a little bit of a rabbit trail. For her, it began being a process of decision making. And it took her time to finally say, okay, I can do this and I can let go so that my adult children do not have to deal with my stuff when I pass. She's very realistic about it. And as tough as that sounds, maybe even for her to say out loud, it gave her a focus. It gave her a purpose of why I'm even working with her towards decluttering.
Totally. I've read the book. I'm sure you have read this book too. The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning. I love it because the woman that wrote the book is very like matter of fact. She's very blunt about it. Let's be adults about it and just understand that just because we bury our head in the sand doesn't mean it's going to change anything. To me, it's an act of caring for our loved ones, like being able to declutter my stuff. Like, one, it helps me mentally and helps everything I do on a daily basis, makes my life easier and all of that. But it also is so nice that my family won't have to deal with this stuff someday. And of course, we all hope that day is a long, long, long time from now. But that after reading that book and kind of thinking through it from that perspective of like, yeah, this could be really, really hard. And then obviously watching what happened with my father-in-law pass away, it is really, really hard to have to deal with all that stuff and things that they probably didn't even think mattered. The people you leave behind are going to be like, oh my God, but they kept it. It must have meant something. Let's take a quick break. And when we come back, I'm going to talk about one really interesting story that a reader told me once that is that exact same thing. And then we're going to dive into some practical tips. Grace has so much for us. So make sure you come right back.
I'm Margaret.
And I'm Amy.
And together we host the podcast, What Fresh Hell? Laughing in the Face of Motherhood.
Margaret, I would say you're sort of a where are my keys kind of mom.
Correct. Sometimes a where are my kids kind of mom. Well, you're, Amy, more of a we were supposed to leave 35 seconds ago, mom.
I mean, touche. In each episode of What Fresh Hell, we come at a topic from our usually completely opposite perspectives. I bring the research.
And I bring kind of the gimlet eye. Like, is that research really going to work, people?
And almost 10 million downloads later, we're still laughing.
We also talk to experts in the parenting field, plus parents with stories we can all learn from.
We make each other laugh, we challenge each other's assumptions, and we have what we think is the best parenting community on the internet.
Check out What Fresh Hell? Laughing in the Face of Motherhood wherever you listen to podcasts.
So welcome back. Okay, so this story, it was the first time I think I did a declutter challenge that I posted on my Instagram. And I was decluttering these ornaments. They were these Disney ornaments I got when I was probably about my daughter's age. I have a set, my mom has a set, and my sister has a set. So we had 3 sets of pretty much the exact same ornaments in our family. But I was decluttering them. I was gifting them to a friend that is a huge Disney fan. And this woman was like, actually, I knew her in real life. And she was like, oh my gosh, I had that same set of ornaments. They're not my favorite, but I figure I'll just let my kids deal with them when I die. And I was like, they're not your favorite. You just said it right there. So either 1, gift them to your kids now, or 2, get rid of them so they don't have to deal with it later. Because then when you die, they're going to be like, oh, mom must have loved these ornaments. She had them for 50 years, and it's like, she didn't even care about them. She didn't even care. She didn't even like them. They're not my favorite, but
Right. And wouldn't it be wonderful, just like my client right now, to have that, to be empowered by that decision making? You are in control of making decisions about your stuff. And that is really, I feel like that book is really the basis of that. You get to have control, you get to decide. And It's such a great feeling to have that because one of the questions that my client would ask me is, what do you think my kids would do with these things?" So I paused a little bit because she answered her own question. She ended up answering her own. "They'll probably just throw it away, huh?" And I'm like, "It's likely, you know?" And so that was a great revelation for her, and hopefully that gives her even more purpose and motivation to let go of the things that she knows that one, no, her adult children will not keep and end up throwing away.
Yeah, good point. And it's not out of a callous place for those of us that are throwing these things away. It's that our lives are already full. And if you think about it, by the time our parents pass away, if we are lucky enough to have them around until we're adults, I mean, we have an entire life of our own that we have built up around us. So to, yeah, merge all of that makes it really difficult.
And you know what's neat on the upside? They also have a life of their own that they can possibly live without the clutter that's getting in their way. So real quick, for example, I have another client who she's an author, she wrote a book, but the clutter is keeping her blocked from actually letting this book go out into the world, and she feels that until I get my things in place, I cannot. I mean, of course, it's our own mindset that kind of plays with us about that, like, "I need to do this before I do that," type thing, but for her, it mattered that her things were decluttered, and so now she's almost ready. She's almost ready to get on that other side of her life where she's done with the seasons of caregiving, taking care of an estate and some other, and then she's still dealing with medical things. But the other side of clutter is she gets to have her book out into the world, and this clutter stuff had been blocking, and what a gift to give to yourself even, not even like sure, it's got its benefits of your kids won't have to deal with your stuff, but for yourself, for your own well-being, and for the things that you wanna move forward with. It's not the end.
Oh, I love that. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. And how fulfilling that must feel. But for herself to just be like, I can do this, I can move on, I can let go of the fear or the control or whatever it is that is holding her back. And she's already done the hard part. She's done the work. She's gotten the book together. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Well, congrats to her. That's great. So then let's talk about some practical tips. Let's kind of skip into that. How can we then now start to effectively sort through and let go of these items that we have accumulated over the many years? We're like, okay, this sounds great and I'm ready to get on board, but how do I start?
Okay, the number one suggestion, and this is totally biased because I am a professional organizer, is to hire a professional because there are times that it is way too overwhelming, and it's okay to hire for help, at least at first, to get it going, because there are times when I would do an assessment and I ask them, like, "How long have you been wanting to do this or to tackle this room?" "Oh, it's been a couple of years." "Okay." In my head, I'm like, "I'm ready to go. I'm ready to do this in 2 days." So hiring a professional is not a bad thing. It's not bad. It doesn't mean you're incapable. It doesn't mean that you are whatever it is that might be the story that you might have in your mind about hiring for help. It's not any of that. And that may be your next step in gaining that momentum and motivation you need to get started. Now, if you're a DIYer, no worries. I have a suggestion for you, and that is start with the easiest thing to let go of, one, and then two, start with a category. Now, here's an example. If you know that you have, wow, you have lots of books and you feel it's okay, it may be, I think it's a good time to start letting go. Just deal with those books. Don't worry about all the other stuff. Just deal with that one category. Or it could be, man, this is what I've seen, DVDs, VHSs that are just hanging out. You're not watching them. We have Netflix and Hulu and all of these other things where punch it in and a movie from the 1950s will come out. So those are the things, easy things. Never start with sentimental. Never. Don't start with sentimental and memorabilia, things like that. Just easy things that you can begin to let go of. So those are my two. It's either, get yourself started with a category, start small, or if you want to just bulldoze through the whole thing and you're ready, you're like, I've had enough of this clutter, get a professional.
I love what you said there. I love the idea of making sure we start with a professional if it's within your budget and if this is something you're really serious about. Because if it's been on your list for a while, this is just something that has really hit home with me this year is like the things on my to-do list, the things on my goal list are hard. And it's like you kind of always know that, but until you actually really think about, there is a reason they're on my goal list. If it was easy, it would already be done. It wouldn't be on my goal list. There is something that I either haven't been taught, or I'm procrastinating against, or I'm fearful of, or there's a block for some reason as to why this isn't connecting. We don't know. There's lots of different reasons why that might be, but having outside help is a great way to get past that first initial block. And then at that point, you can say, oh, okay, thank you for all of this information and this help and this momentum. Now I can take it from here. Or this is going amazingly and I don't really want to do this on my own. All right, let's take a quick break. And then when we come back, we're going to talk about what types of clutter people struggle with the most and why. I'm really interested to hear your take on this one. All right, welcome back. Okay, let's dive in. In your experience, what items do people struggle with the most to part with and why?
I see commonly number one are paper, and they're the trickiest because there's always paper attached to something these days, right? Whether that be like receipts or mail or important documents. I consider books as paper. And so it has been very difficult for people to part with paper because they feel like, well, I need to keep something from 20 years ago just in case I need to look back on it for reference. And I'm like, no, no, you don't. And paper is very tricky because guess what? It's a very thin, but you can stuff them in anywhere. There is a nook and a cranny, and then next thing you have piled them high. And it's really difficult to navigate through it after a while. So paper is one. And two is the ones that people deem to have paid a lot for, whatever that item is, whether it be a large furniture or really clothes that you no longer need. Well, I paid a lot for this. And so everybody has a different like item that they attach to whatever it is that they paid a lot for. And so that is difficult for people to let go of. And a lot of times I see this is clothing that they probably will never wear. And the emotional attachment is hard. Is really tough to part with these things. So within this age group, I would say if I were to choose one, it is paper.
So interesting. I can see that. And I like that books are attached to that. I know books are very difficult for a lot of people. My husband struggles with books. Yeah. So interesting. Okay. And paper, how long so I know that there's the standards. Everyone after the 7 years can get rid of their tax documents and things like that. And then obviously shredding all of this stuff. What other kinds of things can people in paper just get rid of right away that they're not thinking of? Do they have anything that you're like, okay, that can go?
Well, right off the bat, when you get mail, that's really oh man, that is the most sneakiest thing that gets into your home or you allow to get into your home because, hey, paper don't have legs that all of a sudden crawl into your spaces. We put them there. So the best thing to do is really like a daily cleanup of all the junk mail and things like that. And this is what I ask my clients to ask themselves. And I learned this from another organizer where she's like, is there something I need to take action on based on this paper? And if the answer is no, then it can go. And if there's something that you needed to follow up on, yeah, that'll be on the follow up pile. Otherwise, the things that the standard, like you said, the 7 years, like definitely abide by that, because you will free yourself up of so much paper. And you can go to sometimes there's some shredding like events in your town that you can, in your city, that you can just take your paper to, and you don't have to do it yourself. And I've had clients who've broken their shredders to, try to shred so much paper. And I'm like, okay, well, let me suggest this and let's do it that way instead.
Well, and I think office supply stores generally have that as well. And sometimes I think you might have to pay, but I don't think, a lot of times I think it's free. I also check with your local library. They probably have some shredding. I know libraries are so great for so many different things. But yeah, that's awesome. And the one thing I tell people, if we're talking about an older demographic, probably not as helpful. But when I get a manual, we buy something and it comes with a manual of something to use, like a coffee maker or something, I always think, like my Nespresso, if I need to know how to do something with my Nespresso machine, am I going to go to the paper file, pull out the Nespresso machine, or am I going to take my phone out and Google on YouTube, how do I descale my Nespresso machine? It's on my phone.
And you will find it. And you will find it. You will find the resource.
Yeah. And you'll watch someone do it, and it would take 2 minutes, and I didn't even have to put anything away then after, right? Because that's the other problem. I get the manual out, now I'm looking at it, now I got to put the manual away, put my file folder away, and then I still have to go over and fix the thing. And I could have just done it all on my phone. So I don't even keep manuals anymore. But I can't necessarily see my parents being on board with that, but my dad likes YouTube. So maybe. All right, let's talk about mindset shifts, because I think this is one of the biggest hurdles when it comes to decluttering. And you've already talked about you had a client where no one ever told her it was okay to throw things away. I mean, that is just a mindset of just like an open idea of just like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. So let's talk about making room for more possibilities like this, like let go of unneeded things and unneeded mindsets. What are some experiences other than that, or just some advice you have for us for figuring out how to even start opening our mind to new ideas?
Sure. Yes. So if you think about the things that you wish for, start with that. And I have another client where it's, why do you feel like you need to downsize and declutter? And asking yourself these questions will help bring out like the true motivation, the true reason why you want to do it. And I've had an answer where I want to be able to invite people without worrying about papers all over the counter. Ah, there you go. There's that, you're starting that process of a mindset shift of why. Like instead of driving yourself crazy with the narrative of, I don't know, I'm so overwhelmed, I can't do this. And wait, no, you want to be able to have a place where you can invite people to come over without running around and throwing things in a hamper. I've seen it happen. I've done it myself in a drawer.
In a drawer, tuck it in.
And then after that, you don't even know what's what anymore because you mixed them all up. And so it's really the process of letting go of unneeded items is really just a soul searching time. And I can understand why it's so tough, because you have to face yourself and you have to ask yourself some hard questions. And a lot of times it's difficult to do it ourselves. We definitely need someone else to guide us along with that. So, yeah, mindset shift is so key to starting the process, especially when there's procrastination involved and maybe even some ADHD, whatever that might be that is getting in the way, that you can say, instead of, oh, I'm not organized, I never learned this, you can say, I can begin to learn this. And this is a skill. These are just muscles. I tell my clients, these are muscles that you're building to let go.
Good point. And I love how you said start with why, right? What is the whole point right now at this point? What is it that made you reach out right now or think today's the day or this is the year, or why did you write it on your goal list this year? What was it that forced you or compelled you to do that in the first place? And I do think that will really help and give you a good place to start too. Okay, let's talk a little bit. I do have a huge age range that listens to this, but a lot of people like myself, how can I help my parents, right? How can we help our older family members that are hesitant or resistant to this idea when we're like, but it's going to help you so much. What do you do? How do you help them?
Well, let's try to take a look at the safety issue first. So, if you consider their living environment and if you feel that they are safe to navigate and there's nothing that's causing, like not causing, but like potentially cause a fall, if there's like boxes all over the floor or things in their way, if it's safe for them and they like their stuff, I would I would not impose my, I need to declutter your home type of belief on them. If, definitely talk with them and sincerely and talk about what you would love to help them with. But as long as it's not really a safety issue, I don't know that I would impose my desire to declutter or downsize their home.
No, I'm on board. I'm on board. I do think we can only do ourselves for sure, and then it'll hopefully spill out into others.
Yeah, but if there is, then I think I would suggest take the time to listen to what they have to say because sometimes it just takes a little talking out to try to find out what the resistance is all about. So, talking it out, it doesn't take being a psychologist or whatever to have someone just give them the floor to talk out like what the resistance is all about, and then you can just take a step like, okay, let's just start with the counters and see how you like it. How do you like how this looks? And if they do end up agreeing to the decluttering process, great. Do little chunks at a time because it is overwhelming. It takes up a lot of mental energy to even do. Some people have different levels. Some can do a good straight like 3 hours, and others like an hour, I'm done. So find a place within the home where they feel that they can easily let go of things. Like I would say the garage can be very overwhelming. Just, hey, let's just pick up some of the things that are empty boxes. Let's break them down. Just easy things for them to see. Oh, this makes a difference. Decluttering does give me some more space. So I hope that helps.
Oh, it totally does. It's funny that you say empty boxes. I remember my nephew moved into his first apartment and we brought burritos and had us over for lunch. And they were just unpacking, right? They're just out of college or finishing up college. And they've got the boxes. And he's, oh, yeah, don't mind that pile of boxes over there. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to take these. They're already broken down and we're going to go take them down to the recycle bin. Okay. Because there's 5 of us now and we can do it real fast. Okay, let's do it. And then we did it. And he's, oh, thank you. Like after we were done, he's like, that's nice. And I'm like, that's what we do. That's what I'm here for. I'm your aunt. You're hosting us, but we're family. Let's do it.
I love it. Yeah. And he's like, oh, wow. Thank you.
That took one trip, right? With all 5 of us, it took one trip, right? Instead of him having to do it on his own. Well, his girlfriend would have helped him too, but like the 2 of them doing it would have been a lot more, right? And with you have all of us helping, and then we feel good, like we got to help you.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Grace, this has been lovely. Where can people find you? I know they're going to want to follow up and learn more about you.
Yes, I would love. I have a growing Facebook group. It is completely free to join. So please come on in to the Organize with Grace community. And that's where I have been showing up a lot and just doing lives and talking and doing monthly workshops so far with my audience. And you and I as podcasters know it's really hard to connect with the people that are actually listening because we only get to see numbers. Like who are they? Where. But I love the group in that either they have heard of the podcast and I get to see their names. I can e-meet them and at least put a name to. So I would love for you to come on in, and it's a really laid back group and I post tips on there and like I said, live workshops. And so would love to invite your audience in there. If you yourself, am at that midlife. Midlife is really like an interesting term because I guess it's generally for those who are in their, like us, in their 40s to 60s. It's a funny term.
I'm technically midlife.
Yeah, so we're in midlife, right? And it's all good. So yeah, and then the next is also my podcast, Organized with Grace podcast. You can definitely tune in on any podcast platform. And so those are really the two places that you can find me. So I would love to have you come on into my world. And I thank you, Deanna, for allowing me into yours.
Oh my gosh, my pleasure. Yeah, super fun. Super fun. This has been a really fun conversation. And I'm not going to let you go yet because I end with 3 rapid fire questions. So, question number 1, what does clutter free mean to you?
It means no longer being blocked to be the person that you were meant to be.
Ooh, I like that definition. That's fun. Okay. Number 2, what's making you happy right now or in this season of your life?
In this season, I love the time that I get to have with raising my son because this season is it's not coming back. And so just to be able to have the time to savor and to be with him through the hard and through the fun. So I love this season of life right now.
Well, I love it. Yeah. And then number 3, what is a goal that you have for yourself this year?
My goal this year is to get back to running.
Nice. Okay. So were you a runner before?
I was years ago, about 10 years ago, I took it up accidentally and I'm like, oh, I'm liking this. And my husband and I managed to run a half marathon almost a decade ago. And then the second time I was able to get my husband into it too. And he completed a half marathon. And so you never know what's going to come up real soon.
That's super fun. Okay, so you should find a 5K or a 10K that don't start with a half marathon unless you really want to be a glutton for punishment. But yeah, find something, put it on your list.
Okay. Sounds good.
That's your action item. Okay. Put you in the hot seat. Oh, awesome. I love it. Well, Grace, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing all this wonderful advice and these tips and looking at it from a slightly different perspective because, yes, decluttering and organizing, it can help us in all aspects, in all ages of our life. And it's just nice to get tips that are really geared specifically toward helping people as they get later into life and kind of deal with a different phase of life, which is interesting.
Yes. Awesome.
All right. Have a great day.
You too, Deanna.
So, what did you think? I would absolutely love to know what you thought of this episode. Grace and I touched on so many different topics, and as we go through life, it is different. The different life seasons we have, we declutter differently, we organize differently, we have different priorities, but I do think it is super important that we keep in sight the stage of life we are in, what we plan to be doing in the future, and then understand that there are so many mindsets that we're bringing with us from our past, and not just our past, but our parents' past, which then also brings in our grandparents and all sorts of things all down our family tree that have just come up with us. And so we just need to make sure that we are taking a moment to really reflect why we're keeping some of the things we're doing. So I thank Grace for what she's doing to help people bring these mindsets to new light. And her information she shared today was really helpful with that. So I'd love to know what you think too. Come on over to the Wannabe Minimalist family group if you'd like to join a community of like-minded people where you can share your thoughts and comments and we can have a conversation over there. And that's on Facebook, if I didn't mention that. Or you can leave a rating and a review for this show wherever you're listening to this podcast. You can also leave a comment on YouTube for these guest episodes as well. And remember, if you know someone who could use a little help decluttering, maybe you have a family member that you'd like to pass this on to, I would love if you could share it with them as well. And of course, special thanks to Grace for joining us today and sharing so much great advice. Remember, you can get more detailed show notes for today's episode with links to Grace's podcast and her website at wannabeclutterfree.com/207. Again, that's wannabeclutterfree.com/207 to find out more about Grace. And with that, I hope you have an amazing day. I'll see you back here next week for a solo show. Until next time, take care, keep things simple, work on those mindsets to see if there's something you can let go of that you've been holding on to for longer than you needed to. And remember, I believe in you. I'm Deanna Yates, and you've been listening to Wannabe Clutter Free. I'll see you next week. Cheers.